Hey everyone, and welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, this is the place where we talk about everything related to understanding our feline friends a little better, especially the things they can't say out loud, but are constantly trying to tell us through their behavior. And today's topic is one that I think every single cat owner needs to hear, because we're going to be talking about 7 behaviors that a lot of people brush off as quirky, funny, or just typical cat stuff, when in reality, these behaviors could be your cat's way of signaling that something deeper is going on emotionally, and by the end of this video, not only will you be able to recognize these signs in your own cat, but I'm also going to walk you through exactly how to prevent most of these issues from happening in the first place. So if that sounds useful to you, make sure you stick around until the end, and without further delay, let's go ahead and jump right into the first behavior on our list. The first behavior we need to talk about is excessive grooming. And I know what you're thinking. Cats groom themselves all the time. That's just what they do. And you're absolutely right. Grooming is a completely normal and healthy part of a cat's daily routine. But there's a big difference between normal grooming and what's called over-grooming, which is when a cat licks the same spot over and over again to the point where you start to notice bald patches, red irritated skin, or even small sores forming on their body. And while this can sometimes be related to allergies or fleas, in a lot of cases, this kind of repetitive, almost obsessive licking is actually a self-soothing behavior that cats turn to when they're feeling stressed or anxious, almost in the same way that some people might bite their nails or pick at their skin when they're feeling overwhelmed. And what's interesting is that this kind of stress-induced grooming often starts right around the time something changes in the household, whether that's a new pet being introduced, a move to a new home, a new piece of furniture, or even something as small as rearranging the living room, because cats are creatures of habit, and even tiny changes in their environment can throw off their sense of security in ways that we might not immediately notice. Moving on to the second behavior, let's talk about hiding. And to be fair, hiding itself isn't necessarily a bad thing, because cats are naturally drawn to small, enclosed, cozy spaces where they can feel safe and protected. So if your cat likes to nap in a box or curl up under the bed for a few hours during the day, that's totally normal cat behavior and nothing to worry about. But the red flag comes in when hiding becomes excessive, meaning your cat is spending the majority of their day tucked away somewhere, actively avoiding contact with you or other members of the household, refusing to come out even for meals or playtime, and generally seeming withdrawn compared to how they normally act. And when this kind of behavior shows up suddenly or becomes more frequent over time, it can be a sign that your cat is dealing with fear, anxiety, or even something similar to what we describe as depression in humans. Because just like people, cats can become emotionally affected by their environment. And when they don't feel safe or comfortable, retreating and isolating themselves is often their go-to coping mechanism. Now let's talk about the third behavior on our list, which is litter box avoidance. And this one is honestly one of the most misunderstood behaviors out there, because so many cat owners assume that when their cat starts going to the bathroom outside the litter box, it's either an accident, a medical issue, or worst of all, that the cat is doing it out of spite. But the truth is cats almost never act out of spite, and litter box avoidance is far more often linked to stress, anxiety, or some kind of negative association the cat has developed with the box itself. And this could happen for a number of reasons, like if the litter box is too dirty and the cat doesn't want to step into it, if it's placed in a high traffic or noisy area where the cat feels exposed and vulnerable while using it, or if something startling happened to the cat while they were in the box, like a loud noise, another pet sneaking up on them, or even just feeling cornered. And once a cat associates that location or that box with feeling unsafe, they're going to avoid it, plain and simple. And the worst thing you can do in this situation is punish or scold your cat for it, because that's only going to add more stress to an already stressful situation for them. The fourth behavior we need to discuss is sudden aggression or irritability, and this is one that tends to catch owners completely off guard, especially if you have a cat that's always been calm, affectionate, and easygoing, and then suddenly, out of nowhere, they start hissing, swatting, growling, or even biting when you try to pick them up or pet them in ways they used to enjoy. And while it's easy to assume your cat is just being moody or acting up, this kind of sudden personality shift is often a sign of emotional overwhelm, and in many cases, it's a response to feeling cornered, threatened, or like their personal space is constantly being invaded. Whether that's from too much handling, a new person or pet in the house that's making them feel unsafe, or an environment that's become too loud or chaotic for their liking. And what's important to understand here is that aggression is rarely the first sign of distress. It's usually the last resort, meaning your cat has likely been showing smaller, quieter signs of discomfort for a while that went unnoticed, and the aggression is simply what happens when those earlier signals were missed. Let's move on to the fifth behavior, which is a loss of interest in play or toys, and if you have a cat, you probably know just how much personality and energy they can bring to playtime, whether it's chasing a feather toy, batting at a ball, or pouncing on anything that moves. So when a cat that used to be playful and engaged suddenly stops showing interest in toys, stops initiating play, or just seems generally flat and uninterested in activities they used to love, that's a pretty significant change. And while it's easy to chalk this up to your cat just getting older or growing out of it, in many cases, a sudden drop in playfulness can actually be linked to low mood, stress, or what's sometimes referred to as boredom-related depression, especially in indoor cats who don't have a lot of variety or stimulation in their daily environment, because just like humans, cats need mental and physical engagement to stay emotionally balanced. And when that's missing for too long, it can lead to a kind of emotional flatness that shows up as disinterest in the things that used to bring them joy. The sixth behavior on our list is excessive vocalization, particularly meowing or yowling that's louder, more frequent or happens at unusual times, like in the middle of the night. And look, some cats are just naturally chatty, that's part of their personality, and if your cat has always been vocal, that's nothing to worry about. But if you notice a sudden increase in vocalization, especially if it sounds distressed or urgent rather than just conversational, this can often be a sign of anxiety, loneliness, or emotional distress, and this is especially common in cats who spend long periods of time alone, or in households that have recently gone through a big change, like a move, a new baby, a new pet, or even the loss of another pet that the cat was bonded with, because cats form attachments too, and when their social world shifts suddenly, that emotional disruption often comes out through vocalization, almost like they're calling out for reassurance or trying to process what's changed. And finally, the seventh behavior we need to talk about is clinginess or withdrawal from their owner, and this one is interesting because it can show up in two completely opposite ways, but both versions point to the same underlying issue. And on one end, you might notice your cat suddenly becoming extremely clingy, following you from room to room, demanding constant attention, or seeming distressed whenever you're out of sight. And on the other end, you might notice the complete opposite, where a cat that used to enjoy cuddling and affection suddenly starts avoiding contact altogether, pulling away when you try to pet them, or choosing to spend time away from you rather than near you, and whether it's one extreme or the other. Both of these shifts can be a sign of insecurity or emotional distress, because cats are incredibly sensitive not just to physical changes in their environment, but also to emotional changes, including shifts in their owner's mood, stress levels, or daily routine. And any sudden disruption to that emotional connection can cause a cat to either seek out more reassurance than usual, or to withdraw entirely as a way of protecting themselves. So now that we've gone through all 7 of these behaviors, let's talk about the good news, which is that almost all of these issues are preventable, and it really comes down to a handful of simple habits that you can build into your daily routine with your cat, starting with keeping things as consistent as possible, because cats thrive on routine, so try to keep feeding times, play sessions, and sleep areas as predictable as you can, and beyond that, make sure your cat always has access to a safe, quiet space they can retreat to whenever they need a break, somewhere they won't be disturbed by other pets, kids, or loud noises. And on top of that, make enrichment a priority, because daily play sessions, scratching posts, window perches, and even puzzle feeders can go a long way in keeping your cat mentally and physically stimulated. And whenever you do need to introduce changes, whether that's a new pet, new furniture, or a new person in the home, try to do it gradually rather than all at once, giving your cat time to adjust at their own pace. And of course, don't forget the basics, like keeping the litter box clean and placed in a quiet, accessible location. And finally, one of the most important things you can do is simply pay attention, because if you start noticing patterns in your cat's behavior early on, you'll be in a much better position to address small issues before they turn into bigger ones. And at the end of the day, most emotional struggles in cats come down to unmet needs around security, routine, and stimulation. So if you focus on meeting those needs consistently, you'll find that a lot of these behaviors naturally start to fade away on their own. If you found this video helpful, do me a favor and give it a like. And if you haven't already, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss future videos like this one. And if you want to learn more about the physical side of things, go check out our previous video on the signs that your cat might be in pain. I'll leave that linked right here for you. And as always, thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next